In 1964, we were introduced to a Tennessee Williams play that was turned into a film called The Night of the Iguana. It starred Richard Burton, Ava Gardner, Deborah Kerr, and Sue Lyon. The story is about the Reverend T. Lawrence Shannon, who's been living in Mexico for 2 years, working as a tourist guide for a cut-rate travel agency. Shannon lost his church and was defrocked after he took liberties with one of his parishioners. He's now accompanying a group of middle-aged ladies from Texas whose leader, Judith Fellows, is keeping a close eye on her teenage niece, Charlotte, who, by the way, definitely has an interest in the former priest. After Charlotte and the priest spend the night together, Fellows is out to have him fired, and to keep her from communicating with his employer, Shannon strands them at a remote hotel run by his good friend, Maxine Falk. It's the arrival of Hannah Jelkes and her elderly grandfather that has the greatest impact on the priest. Her approach to life and love forces Shannon to deal with his demons and reevaluate his life. The movie was filmed in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where all the exterior shots were done. The rest of the interior shots were done in Hollywood on sound stages. In September of 1963, the director John Huston, Sue Lyon, and Richard Burton, accompanied by Elizabeth Taylor, arrived in Puerto Vallarta, which was at that time a remote little fishing village. The shooting of the film took 72 days. The director loved this area so much and the fishing there that he bought a $30,000 house 8 miles outside of town. By March of 1964, months before the film's release, gossip about the film's production was widespread. Director Huston received a Writers Guild of America award for advancing the literature of the motion picture through the years. At that awards dinner, Alan Sherman performed a song to the tune of Streets of Laredo with lyrics that included, they were down there to film The Night of the Iguana with a star-studded cast and a technical crew. They did things at night amidst the flora and fauna that no self-respecting iguana would do. At the time of filming, it attracted more attention for its location drama than what was happening on the screen. At the time, Liz Taylor was living with Richard Burton, whose agent was her previous husband, Michael Wilding. Ava Gardner's old friend, Peter Vertel, was around with being married to co-star Deborah Kerr. It was for this reason that John Huston recognized that there might be some good fights during the filming, and he gave all of the cast gold-plated guns. The character that Ava Gardner plays was reportedly based on Tennessee Williams' actual landlady of an apartment house that he rented in Santa Monica while he was working for MGM Studios in the 1940s. Her mannerisms, attitudes, and even her distinctive one-syllable laugh were detailed by Williams and are expertly performed in the film by Ava Gardner. Gardner's a handful in this movie. She's absolutely amazing in it. At one point, she kept changing her lines in the film. The line was supposed to say, "In a pig's eye you are." She kept changing it to, "In a pig's ass you are." All this was done at much delight to the rest of the cast and crew, including the director. This film single-handedly put Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, on the map. It didn't even at the time have scheduled air service before they shot the film there. Liz Taylor's appearance on the set and her ongoing affair with Richard Burton made headlines around the world at the time, drawing attention to the location. It's now a top resort location with thousands of hotel rooms, and it's a popular cruise ship port. One slight problem they had to deal with in the beach scene where Richard Burton and Sue Lyon are swimming is the fact that Richard Burton's chest was really hairy, and they didn't like the way that looked on camera, so they had to get the hair removed. Some reports I've read state that it was shaved off, and some actually say that it was waxed off. I find that hard to believe because I think that would be probably pretty painful. Several years after this film was finished, James Earl Ray, who is the assassin of Martin Luther King Jr., fled to this location and the actual filming locations to hide out. The sets from the movie were still standing at that late date. James Garner was originally offered the role that Richard Burton took, and he really thought about it, but then he decided to decline it because he felt like it was just too Tennessee Williams for him. The original Broadway production of Night of the Iguana made its Broadway debut in December of 1961, and it ran for 316 performances. The characters of Reverend T. Lawrence Shannon, played by Richard Burton, Maxine Falk, played by Ava Gardner, and Hannah Jelkes, played by Deborah Kerr, were played in the original 1961 Broadway production by Patrick O'Neill, Betty Davis, and Margaret Leighton. The play and its producer were all nominated for 1962 Tony Awards, but they didn't win any. We get the pleasure of being introduced to the lovely Sue Lyon for a second time. We initially saw her in Stanley Kubrick's film Lolita, where she played the ideal schoolgirl, Nymphette, which a middle-aged man is absolutely obsessed with. Stanley Kubrick plucked her from obscurity from more than 800 hopefuls in that film, and what looked like was the beginning of a glittering career just didn't turn out that way. Many of the female actresses of that time had been damaged by unwittingly becoming underage sex objects, and Sue Lyon definitely fell into this category that was fostered actively by Hollywood. As time went on, Lyon felt like that Hollywood was completely responsible for her downward spiral and loss of control of her life. She felt like the public apparently couldn't separate her from the teenage temptress that she often played in her Hollywood roles. And she was a mega star at the time of this film without even knowing it. It's said that around the time of the filming, she started to suffer with bouts of severe depression. Later on, this led to drug abuse, and it made her ambitions just start to wither up and die. Her comments about making this film are pretty amazing. She talks about how much alcohol that Richard Burton drank after work and even during filming. She said that the alcohol literally oozed out of his pores the next day, and that he gave off a terrible odor when they were trying to film scenes. She stated that it was most unpleasant. In 1965, Sue and her mother were badly injured in a car crash. The actress suffered serious head, neck, and back injuries that meant she had to periodically use a wheelchair for the next 2 years. After another failed marriage and her acting work had completely dried up, she became interested in voluntary social work. And during this time, she got to know a convicted murderer and robber named Gary Cotton Adamson. This was in 1973. At the time, he was serving a 40-year sentence in a Colorado penitentiary. They ended up marrying anyway in the prison, with Lyon veiled and dressed in white. During this time, she was living out of a motel, didn't have any permanent housing, and she was convinced that the guy that she had married was wrongly convicted. At least she felt that way until he broke out of prison and was captured in a shootout with police after he robbed another bank. By 1980, her acting work was so sporadic that she was working various jobs that she could find. She worked as a men's clothing shop assistant, a secretary, a receptionist, and a teacher's assistant. It's just amazing to me every time I see one of these Hollywood stars climb to the top of the mountain where they always wanted to be, and then tumble down. It seems they lose sight of everything that's important. The film grossed $12 million worldwide at the box office and was the 10th highest grossing film of 1964. If you've never seen this movie, and a lot of people haven't, it's a good watch. It's well done, well acted, and I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.